Yes, what is up from California? It is official, I am here. This is my new empty place, and I think we should just go take a lap to see what's up. You ready? Come with me. So this is a bedroom. Here's a bathroom. Yo, what's up? I don't really like that. You need to change. Okay, I close this for better audio, and it didn't work. All right, here we go. This is the room. It's like a family room. Fun fact, there's a basement that was hidden there. Some people were doing some bad stuff before. I think that's why we got a good house at a good price. Anyway, and then here's the office, but look at that echo. Look at that echo. It's really echoey. This is gonna be my studio space, so I'm pretty fired up about it. We have a deck. That's our yard. Then we go up the stairs, and we got a little sitting area, and a kitchen, and kids' rooms, and a bathroom, and that's it. You guys should come hang out sometime. But enough of this real life stuff. Let's talk about the beautiful game instead, starting with Romelu Lukaku. The 24-year-old Belgian international will finally get to play in the Champions League next season, but it's not with his former club Chelsea, as many had predicted a few months ago, but instead with his former manager Jose Mourinho at Manchester United, who let him go to Everton in the first place. Now I know it was actually Lukaku who asked to leave the Blues so he could get some first team minutes somewhere else, and that was 100% the right move, because look what it did for his career. He could have been sitting on the bench, but instead he scored 71 goals in 133 career games for Everton, and now he's the focal point of the Manchester United attacks. Don't at me. But it just seemed, and I'll emphasize the word seemed, that when Mourinho was in charge of Chelsea, he let Lukaku go so casually that he didn't rate him as the future, which was proven true when the news came out that Mourinho told the Chelsea higher-ups not to include a buyback clause when they let him go permanently to the Toffees. So for me, this proves one or two things. One, with this signing, Jose Mourinho has acknowledged that even he, the special one, made a mistake. And I don't know why I pointed at myself. Maybe I consider myself the special one. Or two, and most likely, there was no one else to buy in the transfer window. With their transfer ban upheld, Atletico Madrid couldn't allow Antoine Griezmann to leave because then they would have no one to replace him with. So they promised him the world to stay, and that was just a good decision anyway, whether there was a transfer ban or not. And then Bayern Munich didn't want to sell Robert Lewandowski, and I get it. And then Harry Kane isn't leaving Tottenham anytime soon because they're opening up a new stadium, and you don't really want to do that without your star player. And then Real Madrid was asking for way too much money for Alvaro Morata, so they went to a player, that is Manchester United, went to a player that I'm not sure necessarily is the type of player that Mourinho likes, especially since Lukaku surprisingly doesn't hold up the ball that well for a big man. But he did score more goals than Sergio Aguero and Alexis Sanchez and Diego Costa last season, with arguably a weaker supporting cast, which proves that he does have the ability of creating goals on his own, which is always a highly valuable trait that managers around the world are seeking, and if I was a manager, I would be looking for that too. Also, with a better supporting cast around him this upcoming season, he should score even more goals, theoretically, on paper. In real life. No, I guess in real life doesn't really fit with the other ones. You guys know what I'm saying. But the downside of Lukaku coming in is the outgoing of club legend Wayne Rooney. Waza leaves the club as the leading goal scorer in Manchester United history, and it's one thing to have the cool individual stats, but he also won every trophy possible to show off his team achievements as well. I think he had 12 major trophies in 13 seasons. But at only the tender age of 31, I still think he has a lot to give in these next few years. That is, if he takes care of himself, because the body, which unfortunately slows down as we age, the mind doesn't. It actually speeds up in terms of anticipation and reading the game, and that's all the experience that he's accrued over the years. So if he can adapt physically, he's going to be a very valuable asset to his boyhood club Everton, but he doesn't look like Cristiano Ronaldo, you know? It's not like he's doing the extra work in the gym. They called him Shrek, so was that just his face or was it his body too? Anyway, just lay off the sweets, Wayne. That's what I'm suggesting here. Also, while we're speaking of transfers, can we talk about the business that AC Milan is doing in this window? They're like, you know what? We probably need to clean up our back line. yeah, it's just not good enough. So why don't, you know what, we'll just grab Argentine international center back Mateo Musacchio from Villarreal. No big deal. And then we'll just grab up-and-coming right back from Atalanta, Andrea Conti. And then on the left side, how about Swiss international and highly sought-after left back Ricardo Rodriguez from Wolfsburg? Yeah, that'll pretty much get that all locked up. And then in midfield, it's not a problem. We'll grab Ivory Coast international Franck Kessie on a 2-year loan from Atalanta. Atalanta is the new pipeline for AC Milan apparently. And then we'll go to Bayer Leverkusen, go back to Germany, get Turkish international attacking midfielder Hakan Çalhanoğlu. I think I said his second name right, maybe not his first name. That guy's a baller. And then, well, you know, up front, f it. We'll sign striker Andre Silva from Porto, who has 8 goals in 13 games for the Portuguese national team. And then why don't we just take a flyer on Fabio Borini? Let's bring him back to Italy after his so-so time in England with Liverpool and Sunderland. It's fine. 7 signings, we're good. That should be all we need, but we still need to lock up Donnarumma in goal, which I think they will now that they're making all these upgrades. And they're still trying to get strikers Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to come from Borussia Dortmund, which would be a huge get, and then Nikola Kalinic from Fiorentina. And if all these things happen, then Juventus might actually have a real fight for the league title next season, and that would pump me up. Also, it should be noted, AC Milan are making transfer moves like manager Eno makes transfer moves on arguably the best career mode series on the internet. You just have to appreciate what Eno brings to the table because he gets who he wants. He gets who he wants. He's manager Eno, and he gets who he wants. And he wins motherfucking league trophies. So eat a fat one to all you haters out there. Manager Eno forever! But back to Milan, they're gonna have to sell some players to balance the books a bit. So if I was another club, I would start preparing for that yard sale that Milan is gonna be having on players right now. I wouldn't even wait. Just right now, who can we pluck? Which might actually feel similar to the yard sale that Monaco is having these days by selling to whomever has the most money. And before I leave the topic of the transfer window behind for today, because I could go on and on about it, I want to give a shout out to 2 clubs in London. The first one is Chelsea for a shrewd piece of business by buying one of the top young center backs in the world, and Antonio Rudiger from Roma, which I believe was for a very good price of only $34 million, because not only is Rudiger a great player, but he played a lot in a back 3 at Roma, so he's going to be familiar and comfortable with any position in that formation. So he should make a smooth transition into manager Antonio Conte's preferred team shape. And Arsenal is the other club because whether new signing Alexander Lacazette works out or not, and I think that he will be an upgrade on what they've had these last few years, it's not hard to be an upgrade on that. It's nice to see manager Arsene Wenger actually spend some goddamn money and take a risk. I don't know if Lacazette is actually a risk, but he spent some money, and that's a big deal, and Arsenal fans should be pretty excited about that. Also, I really want to talk about my Copa Libertadores predictions. I know that you guys don't know all the teams or the players, but they just finished leg 1 of the round of 16. Second leg isn't for another month, which is weird. But I want to see how I stacked up after the first leg. I said that already. I'm gonna grab my computer. And what the f***? Jorge Wisterman. You guys remember him? It's a him. He beat Atletico Mineiro all by himself. What a stud, 1-0. Which I guess isn't too surprising since he didn't lose a group game at home, but still. And Atletico Mineiro, come on. You're the #1 seed, act like it. And then I said that River Plate would beat the team that sounds like a yogurt, Guarani, 3-1 over 2 legs, and they're up 2-0 after leg 1, so it's looking good there. Feeling pretty good about myself. And then I said that Emelec from Ecuador would take down San Lorenzo over 2 legs, but they lost the first one at home, 1-0. So that's not a good sign for them or my prediction. And then I said Lanús from Argentina would get past the Strongest, my new favorite club. And Lanús took 1 step closer after they got the all-important road goal in their 1-1 draw. So I'm hopeful that will come true. But if they lose, it's a win-win ultimately, because then my favorite club will go through. And then Grêmio, who I said would barely squeak past Godoy Cruz, are up 1-0. So we'll see if they can finish that one off. And then I said that Botafogo will get past Nacional, and they're up 1-0, which they secured while playing away from home. So that goal is going to count double if they need it. And if you guys understand the road goal rules. And then Barcelona, the other Barcelona, beat Palmeiras 1-0, which is pretty surprising to me. Might not be surprising if you follow that team, but it was surprising to me. And then finally, Santos scored 3 goals on the road against a very familiar opponent in Atletico Paranaense, or Atletico Paranaense, or PR. Atletico PR scored 2. They lost 3-2 at home, which means by my math, they got a lot of work to do. But anything can happen in leg 2, right? So get off my back. And finally, I want to talk about the U.S. men's national team and their 1-1 draw against Panama in the opening game of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, or their opening game. And yes, I know Canada and Costa Rica and Mexico and Martinique and Jamaica all had big wins, but they were against teams that they all should have beaten. So it's not that big of a deal, except maybe Martinique. I don't know if anybody expects them to win, but that's a different conversation, because I want to talk about the U.S. men's national team instead, because we tied an opponent in Panama that we consistently struggle with in this tournament. The last 3 times we have played them in the Gold Cup, we have tied 1-1, and in the 2005 final that I played in against Panama, and I missed a sitter, we don't have to really talk about that part of it. We tied 0-0 after regulation, and thankfully for my sanity, we won in penalties. So they've always given us trouble. Every country has that one country that they can't figure out, and Panama is that for us, specifically in this tournament. And this time around, we did it with a lot of new faces and younger players, which is what we all want, right? We want to give that next generation a chance to shine so they can help us in the next World Cup and beyond. And yes, I know, maybe these players didn't shine as bright as we all hoped and expected, but that's part of it. And I love that this happened, because the manager and the players now have to deal with some adversity early on in this tournament, which is much better to get it out of the way now than to figure out that a certain formation or certain players aren't cutting it in the knockout rounds of this tournament or in World Cup qualifying when it really matters. And yes, before you come at me for thinking that I'm offering up excuses, I'm not. I'm being realistic, and I'm seeing things for what they are, and I'm doing my best, and it's not always possible on the internet, to leave my emotion out of it. And for those of you guys that are thinking, oh, but you would have torn Jurgen Klinsmann a new one had this happened under his watch. You're right! I would have, because that guy promised the world and was arrogant about how we should be doing things. If you called him out on it, he'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm Jurgen Klinsmann. And he always under-delivered, so it was merited. But for me, the true test about whether any of these players are gonna stick with the national team or not is their resolve. So I hope that the manager, Bruce Arena, rolls them out again, the same exact team, because I want to know if they can handle the pressure. Will they come back and have their best games ever for the team after they had a bit of a setback? Especially if they can find a way to have confidence when their confidence is down. Now, talk about a valuable trait in a player, that is a big one. Because the players that bounce back after they're down are the ones that I want in the squad. I want the ones that take responsibility when bad things happen and are willing to risk it all again. Unfortunately, the next 2 opponents in the group are Martinique, who won their first game. That's probably going to be it. And Nicaragua. So we're not going to be pushed like I want us to be pushed, which means we're going to have to wait and see who we face in the knockout rounds. But I am eager to witness which players step up and which ones don't. All right, that's it. That is all I got until tomorrow. So I will see you then. Later.